You hear that? That's the sound of a rubber ball bouncing down the stairs. Doesn't really sound scary, right? Well, that simple sound has been keeping people awake at night for the last 45 years. And if you've seen The Ring, The Conjuring, or pretty much any decent supernatural horror movie from the last 2-3 decades, well, you've basically been watching remixes of a 1980 Canadian ghost story that nobody talks about anymore.
You suck, you jackass.
Howdy, and thanks for clicking on this video to see what this jackass has to say. I appreciate you. So if you're new here, I'm Chris, and if you like films that mattered before the algorithm learned to write scripts, well, you're in the right place.
I'm here for the gangbang.
Martin Scorsese called this movie one of the 11 scariest films ever made. Stephen King said it genuinely terrified him. Guillermo del Toro's praised it repeatedly. So why the hell has almost everyone forgotten about The Changeling? Today I'm going to dive deep into what I think is an overlooked masterpiece. We're going to talk about why George C. Scott's performance is absolutely brilliant, how this movie basically wrote the playbook for modern horror, and why watching it in 2025 feels like stepping into the world's creepiest time capsule. But first, and I can't really stress this enough, this is going to be a full spoiler breakdown. And honestly, we're talking about a 45-year-old movie, but if you haven't seen it, stop this video right now, go watch The Changeling, and then come back. I'll be here waiting. And trust me, there's no way to really properly analyze this film without getting into some major plot points, and you deserve to experience this movie with fresh eyes. If you're still here, good. Let's talk about why The Changeling might be one of the most influential horror movies most have never even heard of. So let's fire up that old time machine and head back to the year 1980, right when the world's on the edge of the neon-soaked 80s. In the world of horror, you just had two titans completely change the game. In May, Stanley Kubrick dropped The Shining, a mind-bending art house horror film that I consider to be an absolute masterpiece. And that same month, Friday the 13th came out, basically inventing the summer camp slasher genre that would define the entire decade. And then, just a couple of months earlier in March, The Changeling quietly slips into theaters. No massive stars besides the legendary George C. Scott, and no giant marketing push. It was a Canadian production that went on to win 8 Genie Awards, which is essentially Canada's Oscars, including Best Picture. And critics at the time actually got it. Leonard Maltin loved it, and Roger Ebert gave it a solid review, though he felt George C. Scott's performance was so strong and stable that it was hard to feel scared for him. After watching this, looking back, I think that's part of the genius. This is a man crushed by grief. Of course he's emotionally numb. So with that said, the critics were on board, but audiences? Well, that's where things kind of get complicated. The movie did make money, but it wasn't exactly packing theaters. It was competing against the birth of the slasher craze and one of Kubrick's masterpieces, so it really had shit timing, I think, is the moral of the story here. But here's the beautiful thing. Over the years, this movie found its people. It became a cult classic the way only the best movies can. Word of mouth, late night TV broadcasts, and eventually home video turned The Changeling into the secret handshake among horror fans. You either knew about it or you didn't. Growing up in the 90s, I never heard a peep about this movie. It was all Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. Even Hellraiser was huge at the time. I discovered this movie a little bit later in life. So let's get to our exhibits. Exhibit A, the seance scene. I think this is the linchpin moment. If you really want to understand why The Changeling works so damn well, you need to look at the seance scene. This isn't your typical movie seance with floating objects and dramatic music stings. This is quiet, methodical, and absolutely terrifying. George C. Scott's character, John Russell, sits at a table with the medium trying to communicate with whatever's haunting his rented mansion. The camera works deliberately restrained, wide shots that let the tension build naturally. When the spirit finally speaks, it's through automatic writing, and what comes out is kind of heartbreaking.
My father. Joseph, did you die in this house?
And I think this scene works because it's not about the ghost being scary, it's about the ghost being human. A murdered child who just wants some justice. The horror comes from empathy, not jump scares. Director Peter Medak understood something that a lot of modern horror seems to have forgotten. The scariest monsters are the ones that you can relate to. And the voice work is just chef's kiss. The child actor, Voldy Way, delivers his lines with this matter-of-fact sadness that will stick with you for days. Now we have Exhibit B, George C. Scott, who delivers a standout performance. Wouldn't be doing this movie justice if we didn't talk about the man, the myth, the legend, George C. Scott. I mean, they just don't make actors like him anymore. This is the guy who won an Oscar for Patton and told the Academy to stick it up their ass. He brings that same raw, unfiltered energy here. His character, John Russell's a man who's just completely completely drowning in grief, and you, as the viewer, totally feel it. You can almost smell the stale cigarettes and whiskey coming off him through the screen. He's not some pretty boy actor pretending to be broken, he is broken. He's a raw nerve, and I think that makes his journey into the supernatural mystery feel so incredibly real. Scott makes you believe because he believes. Plus, the dude learned to actually play piano for this role. He didn't have to, but that was just the kind of actor he was. He was an absolute force of nature. And now Exhibit C, the unsung hero, sound design. Nobody really talks about the sound design in The Changeling, and I think that's a crime. This movie understands that what you don't see is often scarier than what you do see. That banging that wakes Russell up every morning at 6 a.m., it's not just loud, it's rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The way water runs from taps, the creaking of floorboards, the sound of that red ball bouncing down the stairs. It's such a simple effect, but it's timed perfectly and mixed just right to make your skin really crawl. And Rick Wilkins' score knows when to show up and when to shut up. The music box melody that connects Russell to the murder child is haunting without being overwrought. It's the kind of minimalist approach that modern horror could really learn something from. So how do I think it holds up in 2025? Honestly, it feels like opening a time capsule, and I think that's really part of the charm. Yes, absolutely, this movie is dated. The pacing is slow as hell compared to modern horror, and I'm sure there's some people that are going to find it straight up boring.
I can't help them.
It comes from a time when horror movies didn't need to assault you with jump scares every 2 minutes. It trusts you to be patient. The house itself, which was actually just a facade built onto a modern Vancouver building for $200,000, actually feels like a character here. Those wide-angle shots that let you really see the geography of the place, the way shadows fall across doorways, the sense that this place has history, has secrets. This film has just this thick, incredible atmosphere that most modern CGI-heavy movies would absolutely kill for. It's a slow burn for sure, but the payoff is a deep, creeping dread that sticks with you long after the credits roll. So here's some stuff that you may not know. First off, this whole story is supposedly based on real events. Writer Russell Hunter claimed he experienced all this supernatural weirdness while living in the Henry Treat Rogers mansion in Denver in the late 1960s. The house has since been torn down, but Hunter swore up and down that everything in the movie actually happened to him. George C. Scott and Trish Vanderveer, who plays Claire Norman in this movie, were actually married in real life. This was their 7th collaboration together. And get this, Scott was initially worried about working with director Peter Medic because he'd heard Scott could be difficult. The only problem they had, production assistants accidentally knocked over a chessboard that Scott had been playing against himself for over 2 weeks. Apparently, the man was absolutely dedicated to his chess. And as I mentioned, that creepy mansion was total movie magic. They couldn't find a suitable Victorian house in Vancouver, so naturally they just built an elaborate Gothic facade and attached it to a regular modern house. The interior shots were all filmed on interconnected sets in a Vancouver studio. Oh, and here's a fun one. This was baby Joshua Jackson's first on-screen appearance. The future star of Dawson's Creek shows up as an infant. You literally can't spot him, but trust me, he's there. So legendary film director Martin Scorsese doesn't just love this movie, he owns a 35mm print of it. For me, that's what makes Martin Scorsese so endearing. He has some serious film nerd dedication, and this right here proves it. Look, if you haven't seen The Changeling, it isn't gonna blow your mind with fancy effects or make you jump out of your seat every 5 minutes. But what it will do is get under your skin and stay there. It's proof that the best horror sometimes comes from atmosphere, not adrenaline. In a world where most horror movies feel like they were designed by committee, The Changeling feels handmade. It's got soul, and that's something you just can't fake. So how would I rate this bad boy today? Well, my final rating after watching this again, 8.5 out of 10. It's dated, it's slow, and some of you are going to find it boring as hell. But if you're willing to meet it on its terms, you'll discover something special, a movie that understands fear better than most films being made today. So here's what I want to know. Do you think there's still room for old school atmospheric horror like this? Or has our collective attention span been completely fried by TikTok and jump scares? Are we too impatient now for a movie that takes its sweet time building dread? I honestly don't know. And more importantly, what other forgotten horror gems from the 80s deserve the deep dive treatment? I'm talking about those movies that influenced everything but somehow still get left behind. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're at it, let me know what movie you want me to review next week.
Debbie Does Dallas.
I'm always looking for suggestions, especially if it's something weird, overlooked, or controversial. Oh, and if you're into quick movie takes, check out the short section of my channel where I review films each week. Sometimes you just want to know if something's worth your time without sitting through a 15-minute analysis. If this deep dive into The Changeling was your thing, smash smash that like button and subscribe for more forgotten film analysis. And hey, maybe go give this 1980 masterpiece a watch. And if it's for your 50th time, just sit back and enjoy it. Just maybe not alone late at night or in an old house. That ball's still bouncing down those stairs somewhere, and trust me, once you hear it, you'll never forget it. As always, the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone, but what do I know? I'm but a mere jackass. I'll try to do better next time. Catch you later, friends.
I'm just a jackass of all trades, don't know shit. I keep on talking, acting like I'm so legit. From politics to sports, I'll spout